Lockdown accounting, how to manage expenses. My name is Seth David, and I'm the president and founder of the world famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated. And now, perhaps more than ever, more than normal, more than usual, we probably find ourselves wanting to take a close look at our expenses. We want to look at things like our burn rate. A lot of businesses are being squeezed in terms of revenues because people are worried about the unknowns. So I thought it would be helpful to put some content out there that would help companies and those who serve those companies as accountants and bookkeepers analyze the numbers and figure out how to manage expenses. This is part one of a series I'm going to be doing. We're going to look at also how to calculate the burn rate in a future video, and we are going to look at creative ways of generating revenue. So stay tuned, follow along. If you're not, subscribe to my YouTube channel and get a free account on my website. If you just opt in on any of the forms on my website, it will set up the account for you. It'll email you a username and password so you can log in and you can access the notes with the screenshots of this very piece right there in NerdBuzz. NerdBuzz is sort of my free blog, but you do need to have an account on my site in order to access that. So getting back down to business, lockdown accounting, how to manage expenses. Let's take a look at my screen, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I have the sample QuickBooks Online company up just to give you an idea of where to go. If you're in your own company, head over to Reports, and you can find it down below, but the easiest thing to do is just start typing expenses, and you'll find the expenses by vendor summary. Now, the trick to this is, and since this is a sample company, I'll just run it for all dates and totaling it by month. Because what this does, first of all, most business owners, in my experience, have a better sense of what things look like when they're looking at the vendors as opposed to the accounting categories. Because we can look at a profit and loss by month and look at the expenses that way too. But again, in my experience, most business owners, it's clear to them when they're looking at who the payees are, who the vendors are that got paid. And what we're looking for is to see who gets paid every single month, or for that matter, on any kind of a regular basis. Now, this is a sample company, so the data is a bit sparse. But I just want to make sure you get the idea, you get the picture. Once you get this, you're probably going to want to export this to Excel. I don't know. Oh, that's the new export icon. Okay, they changed it. So we can export this to Excel. If you're in QuickBooks Online Advanced, you can actually export it to Google Sheets, which is really cool because then you can do this analysis in the cloud and invite others to collaborate with you to do it with you. But the main point here is that we want to be able to review this stuff and see what are the absolute essential services, where might we want to cut back, put things on pause. And frankly, when I set this up for my clients, and I was doing this long before all this COVID-19 stuff, just as a matter of general good practice for managing a company's finances, I do this analysis, and oftentimes, like right off the bat, we can find, what amounts to easily $500 to $1,000 in annual expenses that we can almost immediately eliminate just by doing this analysis and looking at it and finding things that are services we're still paying for that we're not using, because a lot of times we pay these like $20 a month fees for things that we don't use, and it's because it looks like it's just $20 a month, but $20 a month is $240 a year, and if you find 4 or 5 of those things, it starts to add up. So bottom line, once we look at this, we want to get it into a spreadsheet, and once we get it into a spreadsheet, I want to take it over into Smartsheet. Now, what I did here in Smartsheet is I pre-populated some sample data so you can get a little better picture of what this might look like. And here you don't need the monthly, you just need the renewal amounts, right? So, and over here we indicate the frequency. Is it annually or is it monthly, right? So Airtable's $960 a year. G Suite, $35 a month. Whatever it is down the line, you get the idea. I also like to show here the status. Is it on auto pay or is it something that's paid manually? That helps me manage it every month, because I know if I'm coming up on my vendor sync renewal, and I know it's manual, then I know I have to make sure I do something to make sure that bill gets paid on time, right? The ones that are on auto pay, I don't need to worry. But the main purpose of this is to be able to look at this month in and month out and see, as the renewal dates approach, is this something I'm going to want to renew? And I want to make sure I get notified at least a week before, so I have time to react, time to think about it, and time to go dig up my logins if I need to. So I can go in, log into the service, and if necessary, cancel it, right? Again, before somebody says it, yes, we want to support local businesses. We don't want to make it worse by cutting back. The idea here is to cut back on things we're just not using, right? And that we just don't need. When I did it for myself a long time ago, I immediately, like I said, I can almost guarantee you, just by doing this, if you've never done it, you're going to find at least $500 to $1,000 in annual expenses right away that you can just add right back to your bottom line by just canceling stuff that you don't need or use. Okay. Now let's see how to get those reminders set up, and then we're going to look at how to set up the conditional formatting. So over here, we go to automation, and we can go to manage workflows, or we can just go straight to create a workflow. Okay. And if you've ever used Zapier, this works a lot like Zapier. Okay. So the trigger is going to be based on not when a row is added or changed, but when a date is reached. Okay. And we're going to run it once based on a date field. Okay. And it's based on the next renewal date. That's the only date-based field we have in here. Okay. And then when do we check for it? We can set the time. Let's say 9 a.m. That's a good time for most businesses, right? Now over here, we want to set the condition. So here's the trigger. It's based on the next renewal date. Okay. But this is the key. We don't want to do it on. What I want to do here is I want to do it 7 days before. That's up here. 1 week before. Okay. So 1 week before the next renewal date, I don't actually need a condition. I just want to get a notification, right? So over here, we've got the options for what happens when the condition is met. Do we want to alert someone, request an update, request an approval? These are all the things you can do, and the reason I'm showing you this specifically, and notice we have a Teams integration and a Slack integration, is in addition to this, I want you to think about other things you can do with this, because it's really powerful stuff what you can do here. So let's say we're going to alert someone, okay? For now, I'm going to keep it simple. It's going to go to me. I can customize the message, and I'll say renewal due in 7 days. Make sure you click over and see if this is something you still need. Okay, and save. And that workflow is done. I always forget to name them. Let's edit that up here. 7-day renewal, something like that, right? And save. Now what I'm going to do is I also want to get a reminder 1 day before. So let's clone this. Okay. And this says 1 week before. Now I need 1 day before. All right. Everything else is the same. Well, I can edit the message text, right? So this is going to be in 1 day. And that can stay the same. You get the idea. Okay. Now, the next thing that happens is, when you get that email and you get the notification, you're going to get a link you can click over that takes you right into this project. And in a minute, we're going to do the conditional formatting so that you can also make it very visual so that when you do click in, it becomes very clear which items need your attention. But the other thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to update the renewal date of the items that you've made the decision about. So if I come in here because I'm being warned that Airtable's renewal date was coming up, then what I'd want to do, once I've determined that I want to keep Airtable, I would just forward this. If it's annual, then I would just forward this to the same date the following year, right? So this is a bit manual. There's no way to automatically have it update the renewal dates. But I actually like it because it forces you to proactively come in here and actually pay attention to the thing, right? If it's all on autopilot, then you just forget about it and ignore it, and it kind of defeats the purpose of the whole thing. So as somebody who sets this up for clients, I want them to get that reminder. I want them to click over. I want them to stop and make the decision, right? And then once they've made the decision, they can renew this, or if they decided to cancel it, then we can simply delete the row. We no longer need it in there, okay? So the other thing you want to do in case you do forget to update the renewal date is you want to send yourself some reminders that, hey, you never updated the renewal date. And in other words, we're now past the renewal date. So you either, if it's too late to cancel it, fine, but you need to come in here and make that update. So let's go back to Manage Workflows. And now this one's also called 7-day renewal. I have to change it. That's the week before. This is the day before. So let's change that. And this is 1-day renewal. Save. And then I'm just going to clone one of these. Okay, and this is going to be 1 day after. You know what it is? That doesn't really look like a field that you edit. It just looks like something that's in the margin there. That's why that always throws me off. Anyway, now this has to be 1 day after. Okay, and the message is a little different, right? This is going to be renewal past due. Can't type. Make sure you update the renewal date. All right, and that's it. Okay, and then in case I ignore that, because I know how I can be, I know how people can be, we're going to clone this. And this is going to be 7 days after. 1 week after. That throws me off too. 1 week after. Where is that? 1 week after. There it is. All right, and 7-day warning. Right? You can even maybe put some emojis or something in there. Quick little bonus tip, right? Go to emojipedia. You can usually stick emojis in any of these kind of things, even if it seems like it's a pretty plain text thing. So let's put some toilet paper in there. Seems to be a hot topic these days, toilet paper. Let's go back in here. Yeah, see, you can put toilet paper rolls in there. That should get your attention, especially right now. Of course, a year after this video is recorded, and hopefully by then everything's blown over, people are going to be like, what? Toilet paper? What's he talking about? Anyway, you get the idea. What's going to happen now is I'm going to start getting email reminders based on all the parameters that we set up. If I go to manage workflows, I got 7 days after, I got 1 day after, I got a 1 day renewal, and I got a 7-day renewal. And if you're like me, this is bugging the toilet paper out of you. So let's fix that. All right, now for the conditional formatting, I want the visual. So that's over here. Conditional formatting, new rule, set condition based on the next renewal date. If it is in the next 7 days, that's when we're going to get that first reminder. Oops. And if it's in the next 7 days, I want it to get my attention because I really want to review and analyze that. So let's make it like a real warning-like thing, right? So red background, bold yellow text, and okay. And notice this one lights up, okay? This one is in, actually, let's change that. So let's go back into conditional formatting. I want to reserve that format actually for when it's past the renewal date, right? So this one will make a little less alarming, maybe. We'll do something like that. Okay, and then, so for something that's in the past like this is, we'll do the other format. So new rule, next renewal date is in the past, right? That's the big alarming one. Okay, boom. And for everything else, let's just say if it's coming within the next 30 days, we'll set a color scheme. So in the next, where'd you go? 30. We'll just keep it nice little green. And okay. Now the order of the rules matters, the hierarchy matters. So because obviously if something is in the next day or 7 days, it's also in the next 30 days. So whatever rule is on top takes precedence over anything that comes after it. So if it's in the next 7 days, this supersedes, right? So the order of these rules matters. Also very, very important to note. It even lets you know here, note, higher rules take priority over lower rules, right? So really, really important. And that is my story, actually, and I'm sticking to it. So now you have your automated system set up. As you can see, I mean, the only thing that might take you a while is you have to go through each of the items and kind of hunt down what the next renewal dates might be. Again, going back to QuickBooks, that's usually going to be pretty easy to figure out because if I click in, for example, to this insurance bill, I can go here and I can kind of figure it out, and I can, you know, I might have to go research some paperwork or emails or something. Bottom line, it's pretty quick to figure out that this is renewed on the 16th. If it's an insurance premium, there's a good chance it's something I pay every 6 months, if not a year. So bottom line, you will have to do some research on each of these payees to figure out what to set up as the next renewal date and what to set up as the frequency. This column here, by the way, is a drop-down column. And the reason I did this is I have clients who have 2 companies, and I just felt it was easier to manage all these for both companies from one place. So what I did to deal with that was I added in the drop down so they could assign each thing based on which company it related to. The frequency also is a drop down. I'm just double clicking these, right? And so when you choose the type drop down, of course you can set your choices there, and you can restrict it to only allow those drop down values. The status, also a drop down. The payment method, also a drop down. You list your bank and credit card accounts, and that's definitely useful to have here, because if you're hunting down, it's just bottom line. Hopefully that's obvious enough that it's real helpful to know what the payment method is. You know what card it's being charged on, and so on. And then of course the next renewal date is a date-based column, right? And then the amount column is just a text or number, right? There's one generic column type for text or numbers, and then of course I've formatted it for currency. So that's just your quick kind of overview on how I set those columns up. I sort of realized in my head that I hadn't told you that. So anyway, QuickBooks Online, run the expenses by vendor summary. Just real quick, because I mentioned it. If you want to look at it in terms of expense categories, then you'll run your profit and loss and total that by month. And then you can analyze your expenses this way too, right? So you can see, what are my monthly expenses, where can I cut things back? But again, and especially when it comes to canceling things, I think it makes more sense to do it by vendor, especially with the canceling part, because you'll need to know who it is that you're canceling the service with, right? So from here to do that, you'd have to click in and see, who is it we're actually paying for this thing. God, I hate miscellaneous. Anyway, and I use QuickBooks Online because everything else sucks. I'm just kidding, sort of, not really. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I hope you learned something here. I hope you had some fun along the way. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you on the web.